Hello, friends, and welcome into Fantasy Pros. It's time for some ranks. It's week 3 ranks, and we got the crew here. I'm Chris Welsh. We got Pat Fitzmaurice, and joining us this week is the great and powerful Scott Pianowski, where we are going to be tackling all the big rank issues because all your players are hurt, and you're going to have to figure something else out. Sorry to tell you, same thing's happening to me, same thing's happening to Pat, Scott. We're all in this together, so we're going to be going through running backs, wide receivers, quarterbacks, tight ends, some of the biggest and craziest issues using the Fantasy Pros ranks. We got the whole thing in store. Pat, how damaged did you end up becoming from week 2?
Yeah, I had a couple of Isaiah Pacheco teams that are now suffering. Luckily, I didn't draw 101 anywhere, so I'm not dealing with the Christian McCaffrey absence. And I didn't really have that much of Cooper Kupp either. So I've survived those 2 blows, but there are definitely some tourniquets and Band-Aids elsewhere on my roster.
I'm glad to see you guys both were able to make it. You guys physically made it. Our players didn't make it here. Scott, who hit you the most of all of the injuries? I felt like I had a couple of the, you start weighing your teams, especially if you do a lot. You're like, this is the one I really like, and this one. And I had a Pacheco in a really important league, and then I had a Kupp in a really important league. And those were my only shares. Who was your biggest damaging injury from week 2 or week 1?
Yeah, it's Pacheco for me. I had a lot of hero RB builds where Pacheco is my RB1 tied to an Andy Reid offense. It looked like he was going to have the season I expected. I don't think he was ever going to finish as a top running back or anything like that, but a top 5, top 10 back, that's all I was asking for. And now that's out the window. And like Pat, I feel extremely lucky. Although I didn't think it was automatic pound the table for McCaffrey at 101. I would have considered Bijan or Breece Hall just to have some diversity. The receivers obviously had a very strange offseason with holdouts and some other stuff. But I would have had more McCaffrey than anything. If I had 10 number 1 picks, I probably would have got 6 or, I'm buying donuts, right? I'm buying bagels, right? I'm not going to get 12 everything bagels. I'm going to get a variety, but the majority would have been the McCaffrey bagel. And right now he's been a bagel. He hasn't played any snaps while Jordan Mason looks really good. And this is just football. It's a snow globe league. No matter how we put in so much time studying free agency and the draft and workouts and whatever nuggets we can get from the summer. And then the stuff you put out there, my fate of Alvin Kamara is looking really good right now. I have no Alvin Kamara shares, and he looks like he's 23 again. And Clint Kubiak, he's not even part of the Shanahan tree anymore. I think he might be Mike Shanahan. I mean, it's amazing what he's cooking up in New Orleans. So I've noticed, for me, not that anybody should care about my teams, but just a trend I've noticed with my own fantasy portfolio is that September is usually my worst month, and I try to survive it, and I try to, with maintenance, with fabbing, with trading, with good lineup decisions, whatever it is, just be a good engaged player. And my teams usually get better as the season goes along, even though I do play a high level of competition. So I'm hoping right now I got a lot of my teams are taking on some water, but nothing's fatal after 2 weeks. We're just like the Baltimore Ravens. We got to turn things around. We got to get a win in week 3.
We just moved to next week. We moved to week 3. The other weird thing too with all the injuries is there weren't these incredible replacements where it was like Puka last year. I mean, Jordan Mason clearly, but I don't think Jordan Mason was available in as many leagues as people think he was. He wasn't in a single league of mine. I had a bunch of shares, but there were a lot of missing replacements for these great players that were hurt. And that's why the rank's even more important, what we're tackling today, to get you set. But before we do, how about some free stuff, friends? Yes, because if you want a chance to win a signed Devontae Smith Eagles helmet for free, courtesy of our friends at pristineauction.com, all you've got to do is head to fantasypros.com/contest, complete the form, then you can download the Fantasy Pros My Playbook app if you would like. Leave a review for the podcast. Follow us on X, Instagram, and TikTok. Why do I give you all those options? Because the more actions you complete, the more entries you will receive. We'll be announcing a winner right here on the podcast. And if you're watching on YouTube, be sure to subscribe and turn on notifications so you can be alerted when new episodes are up so you can claim your prize. Get it today, the Devontae Smith autograph helmet. Before we start up, we do want to give a shout out. Something I wanted to start doing just a tiny bit was give a hat tip to the awesome rankers. If people don't know, we have an accuracy contest we do here. We tweet it out usually on late Tuesday night or whatever. And we track it throughout the year and just give a hat tip. What better episode to do than the ranks? Our top 3 from week 2, shout out to Ellis Johnson with the number 1 spot, the best ranker of the week, I believe, was number 1 in quarterback and wide receiver. That's pretty hard to do overall. Nima Hadjet I believe I'm saying that correctly, was number 2. And Dylan Licciardo. Hopefully I'm saying those correct. Nima Haja, number 2. Dylan Licciardo coming in 3. Those are your top 3 most accurate rankers for week 2. And Pat, a hat tip, unfortunately, we have to give to our boy Mike Mayer, who ended up finishing 11th, the highest of our Fantasy Pros guys. Is there any worse feeling than when Mike Mayer finishes higher than all of us? Because then we're going to hear about it all week, and it's like, it's Mayer.
Hey, I am off to a Bo Nix type start as a ranker this season. So, I'm glad someone at Fantasy Pros is doing well in the rankings contest.
We had a pretty good week 1. I did not have a good week 2 whatsoever, but hopefully we'll be announcing some of our names on there. Hat tip again. And if you guys want to check it all out, you can find our ranks over at fantasypros.com/rankings. You can see the consensus ECR rankings where we've got them. And you can also find that nice accuracy setup if you guys would like to check that out. Gentlemen, let's jump into the rankings. We are going over to running backs. Here is our top 12 ECR as of recording this show. Just everyone be aware, this changes as more people adjust and add their rankings in. So, don't hold our feet to the fire on this one. They will adjust a tiny bit. But as of currently, Bijan Robinson comes in at number 1. We've got Breece Hall at 2. Saquon Barkley, Jordan Mason at 4 this week. Jonathan Taylor, Devon Achane, Alvin Kamara at 7. Jahmyr Gibbs, Derrick Henry, James Cook, Josh Jacobs, and James Conner. We don't do a big, heavy, crazy focus on RBs 1 through 12 because you're all starting them, but I think it is worth a little bit of a conversation when there's differences. And we seem to have that with Derrick Henry with both of you guys this week, where you are lower than consensus. He comes in at RB 9. Fitz, you've got him at 10. Scott, you've got him at 11. So he's still an RB 1. Some concerns starting to fester a little bit more with their overall running game with Justice Hill. Scott, let's talk with you about, again, you don't hate Derrick Henry or anything like that, but you're lower than consensus. Are you starting to pay closer attention to possibly fade as the season goes on?
It could be, although to be honest, you should have probably faded my first 2 week rankings. I'm not doing that great in the Fantasy Pros expert accuracy. And the great thing about Fantasy Pros, one of the many great things, is how customizable it is. You can go to the expert rankings and say, oh, I like Pat. I don't like Scott. I like Dalton Del Don. I don't like Andy Behrens, whoever. I like Welsh. I don't like this other person, and just get the experts that you trust. So again, hat tip to Fantasy Pros. And it's just great to be here. I'm worried with Derrick Henry that he's becoming really touchdown dependent. And Baltimore, I don't think anybody thinks of them as an 0-2 team. I mean, they lose to a good Kansas City team. If Isaiah Likely is a different shoe size, they may have won that game. And then I don't know how they blew a multiple score lead against a plucky Raiders team, but certainly a team they should handle at home. But Henry has never been a pass catcher, and maybe this offense, it's 2 weeks. I trust the Baltimore coaching infrastructure. We know the offensive line doesn't look good right now. And it's just funny, before the season, we worried about the Baltimore offensive line, and that seems justified through 2 weeks. New Orleans, by some metrics, had the worst offensive line in football, and Alvin Kamara looks like he's 22. So I don't understand that at all. But I think Henry doesn't have one. I don't think he has the upside that he would normally have in a Derrick Henry season, and because of that passing role that just isn't there, and maybe this offense is more of a 6 through 10 offense than a top 5 offense. I think it's a little less dynamic. Where you drafted Derrick Henry, it's hard for me to imagine a roster build that you wouldn't be starting him. I mean, you'd have to get lucky with every right answer that was mispriced or came into value. You'd probably have to have Jordan Mason on your team maybe to be benching Derrick Henry, but he's more, I want to think he was like a really good hero running back build guy, and now he's kind of on the cusp between running back 1 and 2 for me right now.
Pat, I'm wondering. I do the buy, sell, and trade show on Tuesday where we pick and we're like, all right, me and Erickson pick some guys we want to buy and want to sell. There's a little part of me that wonders if maybe we are going to actually be tiptoeing into a buy territory of Derrick Henry in the future. Everything Scott said is right, but the one thing that keeps holding with me is you got to wonder if this team is slow rolling Derrick Henry into the year. He's not a young, spry back anymore. They're playing for the playoffs. You probably don't want to jump him in 25 carries at the early part of the season. I just wonder if he gets going as the season goes on. That doesn't really help a lot of people right now. And one of the things that maybe Simi shows that as well in the ranks is you guys have both got Josh Jacobs quite a bit ahead of ECR and ahead of Derrick Henry in here. So I guess I kind of apologize. I throw two kind of statements at you. Josh Jacobs being heavily over ECR and Derrick Henry, but just also wondering if maybe Derrick Henry is a guy that's going to start getting going as the season happens. We get further along and they want to give him 20 plus touches.
I think there will be 25 carry games for Derrick Henry, but the Ravens are 0-2. They played from behind pretty much throughout the game in week 1, so it's not surprising that he hasn't gotten that big game yet. Scott has, I don't know if he coined this term, but he uses it often, and I steal it shamelessly, touchdown deodorant. Derrick Henry is lathering on the touchdown deodorant the way my son puts on Axe body spray before high school every morning. So, yeah, he's on pace for 1,100 rushing yards, but we know there's not going to be much in the passing game for him. As Scott pointed out, the Ravens' offensive line looks like it's more of a problem than a solution so far. And if he is not able to pile up the rushing yardage the way he did back in his Titans heyday, we're going to need a lot of touchdown deodorant this season for him to pay off his second-round investment.
And that's hopefully where he's
By the way,
go.
let me back up really quick. Something that Tim said about maybe it's a slow roll for Henry. I just looked this up now on a whim while you guys were talking, and I never know if first half, second half splits mean anything. Like Eugenio Suarez right now in fantasy baseball has been a monster in the second half, and his whole career's been like that. Derrick Henry, yards per attempt per month, by month for his career, 3.88 in September, 4.55 in October, 4.94 in November, 5.11 in December, and for a very small sample, it's 5.89 in January. So it's incredibly linear. It's so rare to see a player who had, and the touchdowns have gone up in every month as well. I have no idea. Or I guess maybe October, November, there's a little bit of haziness there. But obviously, he's become more effective as the season has gone along. He's deep enough into his career that maybe there's something to this. Maybe he doesn't have his sea legs in September. So it's hard. A lot of times when you look at splits like this, it can just be really noisy, especially with a younger player. There's not a sample here. But Derrick Henry's age 30 season. So I'm willing to I can't necessarily explain it, but it sounds like it could possibly be correct. So I just want to throw that out there for the listener to decide if they want to get into the Derrick Henry business. This is a data point that would suggest it's a good idea.
And the other one that I mentioned, you guys were both over consensus on Josh Jacobs, had a big monster week last week. To credit, Malik Willis moved the offense probably better than any of us thought. They put him in super low leverage situations. Pat, is there anything you want to add real quick on Josh Jacobs? You've got him the highest. You have him at RB7. He's RB11 in ECR right now. So you've got him in a very, very good spot. He had a whole bunch of work last week. Presumably with Jordan Love out, that's going to continue. Anything you want to add on Josh Jacobs?
Yeah, probably a mea culpa here, because for a lot of our summer shows, I sort of warned people that Matt LaFleur has long preferred a committee approach at running back. And even when he had a 24-year-old Derrick Henry, when LaFleur was offensive coordinator for the Titans, he was basically splitting carries between Derrick Henry and Dion Lewis, if anyone remembers him. So, but obviously we're getting a perfect storm here with the Josh Jacobs usage, with no Jordan Love, Malik Willis, a very limited passer at quarterback for the Packers. So we got 32 carries from Josh Jacobs last week. And why not? Because the Colts' run defense is horrible. They were loading the box and still couldn't stop Josh Jacobs. So, this is a really nice setup for Jacobs to be the sort of workhorse maybe people were envisioning when Jacobs first signed with the Packers. I don't know if we're going to get that all season long. Maybe not once Jordan Love is back, but for now, saddle up Josh Jacobs, because I think he's going to get a lot of work.
How dare you besmirch Dion Lewis, who was running back 12 in the 2017 fantasy season? Just one of those all the years where people would say, oh, you can't trust the Belichick backfield. And there was a right answer in that backfield almost every year. Often it was James White, Wisconsin, shout out for Pat. But that year it was Dion Lewis. What a win for Matt LaFleur. Coaching is so important in the NFL. And LaFleur, you give him a quarterback who just joined the team. We're not even sure if he really deserves to be in the league. And Malik Willis, a Colts team that was favored on the road at Green Bay, and the Packers just steamrolled them. It's here we come, try to stop it. And it's a feather in Jacobs' cap. Now, it's the usages. We're not going to see a lot of 32 carry games. He didn't have any targets. They probably just wanted Willis to throw as infrequently as possible. But in a season where we already talked about Henry, so many running backs in their back nines changed teams this year. And it was hard to know who do we trust. And I think when Jordan Love got hurt, it was really easy to pull back on all of their receivers and at least move Jacobs down in the ranks. And I think last week showed us to not underestimate what Matt LaFleur can do, even when he doesn't have his franchise quarterback playing. And
also would point out Marshawn Lloyd put on the IR. So there's literally nobody else there. So Manuel Wilson, of course, but he can still keep rolling that. Let's go to the RB 13 through 24. So this is RB2 this week. The ranks, we've got Travis Etienne, Kyron Williams, Brian Robinson Jr. coming in at 15, Ramondre Stevenson, Rashad White, David Montgomery, Tony Pollard, Zach Charbonnet, RB20 this week, Aaron Jones, J.K. Dobbins, Zack Moss, and Jerome Ford. So let's take a little stop at the Zach Charbonnet train. Zach Charbonnet, ECR 20. Pat, you've got him at 14. Scott, you've got him at 22. So Scott, let's start with you. You're the low guy on Charbonnet. Low, so you're closer to ECR. Pat's much more of the high player here, almost as an RB1. What did you think, and how do you feel moving forward with Zach Charbonnet? This is obviously contingent on, Ken Walker and his being active or not. But Zach Charbonnet literally, I think, had like 97% of the snaps or whatever it was at RB. He was the top guy. Efficiency is maybe another bigger question. Talk to us about Zach Charbonnet.
Yeah, Pat's right. His ranking is probably more reflective of where I'm going to land on. And I'll shamelessly admit that being on these shows periodically is going to help me sharpen my own ranks as I get caught up on some of your angles and just some news. I think when I initially ran my rankings, I was overestimating the odds of Walker playing this week. And it sounds like he probably is going to need multiple weeks to rest up. That snap share is just divine. Charbonnet is a very good receiver. We saw him catch a touchdown pass in week 1, heavy workload as a bell cow in week 2. And with the running game making a comeback in the NFL, Seattle has a better passing game than a lot of teams right now. I'm really excited to see JSN get going last week. And Metcalf had a huge game. Geno Smith has been one of the right answers. If you're playing Superflex, you couldn't have done much better than Geno Smith at the cost he came at. But Charbonnet has, I think, 20 touches in his back pocket. He could go past that. Miami team that probably wants to play conservative with Tua is going to be out multiple weeks. I don't know if they're going to eventually bring somebody in, but it won't be this week. Charbonnet, Pat's ranking for Charbonnet is not only right on the money, but I'm going to be interested in Charbonnet as a DFS play this week as well.
Yeah, Pat, there's kind of this interesting thing too I look at with Charbonnet against Miami, where I feel like there isn't going to be a middle ground with Miami this week, and maybe I'll be wrong about it. I feel like it'll be either, holy crap, they're moving the ball, Skylar Thompson, because you have these awesome weapons and they're scoring, and then it's coming back and the offense is having to run. Or the more likely situation, they're really struggling with that new quarterback in there, and the ball keeps coming back to Seattle. And Seattle's passing game was phenomenal last week. If they kind of continue that, the second half could just be a lot of just ball control, which is going to equate to Zach Charbonnet for a lot of touches. So talk to us about that 14 almost creeping into RB1 Zach Charbonnet.
Yeah, and of course, if we do get the return of Kenneth Walker, this ranking is going to drop. And, I'm sure other people are ranking him maybe as if there's a chance Walker returns, but I'm just kind of all in on it being Charbonnet this week. So I'll adjust downward if I have to. But both of you guys have alluded to this. It's the likelihood of the Dolphins like running away and hiding this week against Seattle on the road, not very high without Tua Tagovailoa at quarterback. Maybe Skylar Thompson can be functional and competent, but I don't think they're going to hang 40 points on Seattle on the road this week. So, that sets a pretty nice usage floor for Zach Charbonnet. And we saw last week 14 carries and 5 catches. And, as you pointed out, Welsh, almost a 100% snap share. So, the usage trends looking pretty good for him so far.
I have a feeling this week we have these trends on the Sunday show. If you guys ever want to come check it out, by the way, we got a 2-hour live stream on Fantasy Pros about 3 hours before kickoff. We give that last hour for you to make your adjustments and stuff. And I usually do the second hour. And we've had these trends where we have these guys every single week. It's like 4 or 5 players that just 80% of the questions are centered around like these guys and should I da-da-da. I kind of have a feeling, though I think everyone will lock into this player could be that guy. J.K. Dobbins. And the reason behind this is J.K. Dobbins is going to be up against his first real test this week. And a lot of people that own J.K. Dobbins probably had 2 to 3 other RBs already in their arsenal. But there's no question that Dobbins has been absolutely phenomenal this year. He's up on many metrics as far as yards go, explosive yards, yards after tackle this week. He was untouched in week 1, and touchdowns. He's kind of been the main guy. But this week he comes in at ECR 21 because, again, this is the first real test against the Pittsburgh Steelers. Pat, you just got him as an RB2. He's barely in there. Scott, you've got him a little bit higher. So, Pat, real quick, are you concerned that this Steelers defense is going to challenge a back that is in, not questionable, a full-on split with Gus Edwards? Are you worried about efficiency this week with J.K. Dobbins?
I am. After games against the Raiders and the Panthers the first couple of weeks, like that is a pretty, that's a good running head start for J.K. Dobbins. And Dobbins has looked undeniably terrific, much better than Gus Edwards, who I don't think has been credited with a single broken tackle yet in 2 games this season. So, like, I have confidence that the role is, it's going to be more like this going forward. Like, I do think this might turn out to be a 60-40 for as long as Dobbins is able to stay healthy. But yeah, the Steelers' defensive front 7, terrific. Road game. This is going to be a real stern test for Dobbins, and he doesn't have passing game usage to fall back on. He does have 4 catches so far this season, but they've netted 4 yards.
Scott, same thing. You are a little bit higher on it. This is a much tougher offense, but this is going to be the tougher defensive matchup. This is going to be a tougher challenge for this offense. And I guess what we haven't seen, kind of alluded to, Gus Edwards has not been good or efficient or really anything outside of just vulturing carries in here, that when push comes to shove, the team most likely is also going to lean back on Dobbins. He has a better receiving equity. He has been more explosive. You've got him a tiny bit higher than consensus, but you're essentially there. Any and what worries exist with him going up against the Steelers?
Yeah, I think it's going to be probably a 15 to 18 touch day where it's not very efficient. You might need a touchdown to pay it off, some of that touchdown deodorant. I think it's important to recognize, though, that some people get tripped up by, Dobbins, he only played 46% of the snaps. Well, yeah, he had a carry on 17 of those 32 snaps. I mean, the Chargers are not trying to fool anybody with their offense right now, especially with their running game. We know with Harbaugh and Greg Roman, this is what they do. They did it at Stanford. They did it San Francisco. Obviously, Harbaugh ran to a national championship, not throwing the ball infrequently at Michigan last season, although it still got J.J. McCarthy in the first round. It's sad we won't see him this year, but this is probably stock. I hate stock buy low, sell high advice where like 20 reasonable people would probably all agree. That said, if you are one of the people who been relatively injury free, maybe you landed on Dobbins, he was a very affordable pick in the summer. It was hard to figure out where the Chargers offense was headed, what backs were they going to use. You could talk down all of them really easily. I would love to try to lock in those profits. Now, Dobbins has just been hurt so many times in his career, and I realize every running back is injury risks, so it's anybody can slip on the banana peel, and so many injuries are flukes anyway, but I would at least be having those conversations. And again, in a competitive league, maybe you can't do it. And in the league where you can do it easily, maybe any advice will work in that league. Maybe you don't even need to listen to these shows because you're the smart guy and everybody else doesn't know what they're doing. But I think if you have J.K. Dobbins, you really have to, and don't scream out, hey, J.K. Dobbins is available. Say, I got pretty good running back depth. Do you like any of the guys on my team? And let them come to Dobbins and see what might be available.
I think what's the old saying? If you're the smartest man in the room, find a different room. That might be the type of idea you want to look at. Last one we're going to do in the RB2 range. Zack Moss comes in at ECR 23. You guys are both lower. Scott, you got him at 26. Fitz, you got him at 27. He also popped up in our buy-sell trade conversation. Even though he's kind of been the majority of the guy, I think a lot of people are feeling that Chase Brown might be coming. Pat, Zack Moss this week. Distrust is in the air. What say you?
Yeah, just kind of continuing my summer stance. I mean, he is operating as the clear RB1 right now for the Bengals, and the Chase Brown threat has not yet materialized. But I just don't think Zack Moss is very good. I do think eventually, there is going to be more work for Chase Brown here. Like, they need an explosive element out of the backfield, and Zack Moss is not the guy to provide it. And the matchup on paper looks pretty good against Washington, but the Commanders are better against the run than they are against the pass. So maybe it's not as good a matchup as it would appear. So I don't know. This is just overall Moss skepticism, I guess.
And I think that's understandable. I'm all in on Jamar Chase this week, having the bounce back game against this awful Washington secondary. The one thing that sticks in my mind, though, is like deep 50-yard pass to Jamar Chase. He's tackled at the 2, and then Zack Moss comes in and pounds that in. Scott, are you going to kind of echo the same things? Any other different worries about Zack Moss?
Yeah, I will say that in the preseason, when Brown kind of became the hot back in this backfield, and some people were starting to rank Brown a little bit higher, I wonder if that one touchdown catch and that perfectly designed screen where he was untouched, and I realized he had a really high speed on that play. I just thought Brown might have been a touch overrated in the summer, and I was just kind of taking the ugly, hold your nose pick of Moss. He has not run well through 2 games. He's obviously had the usage, and he probably has the goal line equity, as you mentioned, if they do get Chase tagged. And Chase, of course, is a screaming go-get. This Washington defense for over a year now has just been the biggest giveaway. Remember, the Bengals are 0-2, right? When you have a situation where you drafted Brown, you can't play him right now, or you don't trust him right now, the Bengals are looking for answers. And when they have an inefficient back who's essentially in the lead right now, it just screams out, let's see what Chase Brown can do. Or maybe all Brown needs is to get a series, rip off a couple of runs, maybe bust off a screenplay or whatever. And they say, okay, we like what we're seeing here. Let's expand his role in game. I could see that happening. So definitely don't cut Brown. I think a lot of teams are probably strong enough they don't have to start him this week. Moss has the goal line equity. But again, when teams have a bad process and they win, a lot of times they don't change the process. When teams have a questionable process and they're losing, and I realize they easily could have won that Kansas City game, God, they played terrible against New England. Chase Brown is still getting a reasonable run out. Given that he's not playing, at least they're not winning without him, I think it's only a matter of time before this becomes a 60-40 or 50-50, or who knows, maybe even the Chase Brown backfield. So even though I started the season pro Moss, as much as anybody could really tiptoe into that, I think Pat has the right angle here.
All right, we've got RB3s, but first, TD, Tutty, taking it to the house, in for 6. Whatever you call a touchdown, one thing is for sure. Touchdowns matter more at DraftKings Sportsbook, an official sports betting partner of the NFL. On the ground, in the air, from the special teams or defense, we don't care how they score them. We want to bet on touchdowns. And DraftKings Sportsbook is the #1 place to bet those touchdowns. We just talked about J.K. Dobbins. Will he do it again? I've been betting on Gus Edwards every single week. That hasn't worked. It continues to be Dobbins. Well, guess what? This week, plus 145 you can still get on J.K. Dobbins to score a touchdown. If you're ready to do a touchdown dance of your own, new DraftKings customers bet $5 can get $250 in bonus bets instantly and get 1 month of NFL Plus Premium. Download the DraftKings Sportsbook app and use code FantasyPros. That's code FantasyPros for new customers to get $250 in bonus bets when you bet just $5 and get 1 month of NFL Plus Premium only on DraftKings. The crown is yours. Running backs 25 through 36, RB3s, or flexes, however you want to look at it. DeAndre Swift comes in at 25, Najee Harris at 26. We've got Joe Mixon, Zamir White, Devin Singletary, Javonte Williams at 30, Chuba Hubbard, Austin Eckler, Zeke, Gus Edwards, Jalen Warren, and Bucky Irving rounds it out at 36. Boy, gentlemen, 30 through 36 does not look enticing to me. But let's start with DeAndre Swift. I feel like there is a turn face that's happening. Everyone's turning on Zack Moss a bit. Everyone's turning a little bit back to DeAndre Swift. That's been part of the conversation. Our own Andrew Erickson was doing this. ECR 27. Scott, you've got him at 25. Fitz, 21. Fitz, hit the table here. DeAndre Swift inside an RB2 for you this week. Sell us on it.
Rough start for Swift so far, 2.0 yards per carry, 24 carries, 48 yards. But I would urge the Swifties not to abandon ship this week because they are playing the Colts, who were absolutely pummeled by Joe Mixon in week 1, battered by Josh Jacobs in week 2. I know the Bears' offensive line has not played really well, particularly with pass protection so far, but I think this is a get-right game for Swift. If the Panthers have the worst run defense in the league, then the Colts are close second. And plus, I don't think they want to have Caleb Williams throw 40 passes a game the way things have started for him. I think they would prefer a balanced attack. Swift is going to get his touches this week, and I think he can make hay against this defense.
Scott, is DeAndre Swift in his RB2 era?
Pat nailed it. I mean, the Colts running defense is just, full of blank spaces. So if you're a Swift manager, you just get to shake it off. I know the 2.0 sticks out like a sore thumb. Also, with Caleb Williams just getting beaten up, 7 sacks absorbed in that Houston game, he played very poorly. Somehow they beat the Titans in week 1 because Will Levis just gave that game away. This just screams out, okay, let's protect our quarterback. Let's insulate our quarterback. Let's try to do maybe a similar game plan to what Matt LaFleur did last week. Okay, let's protect the quarterback. Let's hide the quarterback a little bit. And obviously, Malik Willis and Caleb Williams are totally different players. But this is a game where I think Swift has 25 carries, goes well over 100 yards, gets in the end zone because the Colts will escort you anywhere you want to go.
This is good. Let's go to Zamir White, who came in at RB 28. This is a differing of opinion between both of you guys, where Fitz, you've got Zamir White at 26. Scott, you've got Zamir White at 32. Zamir White has been a pretty massive disappointment so far. We've seen Madison didn't do anything last week after like week 1. Hey, maybe he's going to take over. Just said the 1 carry was a touchdown, but that was about it. The team said they want to use more Zamir White. Want and doing are 2 different conversations for this team, and I think that's kind of the battle between the rankings. Scott, where is your pessimism on Zamir White, the production that we've seen versus what could be in the coming weeks?
Again, it's a case of maybe I need to shade up my ranking a little bit more because I'm shocked at how Gardner Minshew has been really efficient. He leads the NFL in completion percentage after being under 50% in the preseason against backups and vanilla defenses. That's a pretty good trick. Brock Bowers was more ready for the NFL than I expected. So maybe this offense has more buoyancy than I expected. As we talked about earlier, Carolina's defense just can't stop a nosebleed right now. I also think I don't think he's on the shot sheet. I have to admit, I'm going to die. I'm going to be the last person on the mountain not giving up on the Carolina Panthers. And I have Chuba Hubbard actually above Zamir White. I think this is like an 18 to 20 touch game for Hubbard. I think Andy Dalton is a monumental upgrade over Bryce Young, who wouldn't be at this point. But with White, they want to use him more. I get it. Madison's going to have a role. I don't think Madison's a special player by any means. Maybe the passing game is more involved than I expected a few weeks ago as this Raiders offense has more. Schedule does get a lot harder, by the way. Take advantage of them this week because then they have some tough matchups coming. But I think it's still a platoon. I think it still might be a hot hand situation. And so maybe I need to bump up Zamir White a couple of spots, but he's still on the cusp of starting or not starting. I can't say he's a slam dunk starter for me in week 3.
Yeah, no, I think that's really astute because he hasn't done anything to warrant excitement. The only 2 things that are out there, Pat, and I'm buying into this, I'm closer on your side, is Carolina and the gifts that they'll give defensively to a running back, and the conversation that Zamir White needs to be more involved, Pat. So were those the 2 driving, obviously probably have to be the 2 driving factors here.
Matchup is the big one for sure. But, I still don't have him ranked in inside running back 2 territory. And like, it is a concern that maybe they are a hot hand team. Alexander Madison played a lot more in week 1 than anyone thought. The usage stabilized a little bit. I'm sure you were panicking if you were a Zamir White investor in week 1 when he had a 38% snap share, up to 61% in week 2. I guess that's encouraging. But as Scott said, I think you got to take advantage of this matchup because maybe the Raiders are not going to be as run heavy as we thought we were going to be. That was kind of a common trope of the offseason that they were going to, they wanted to run all the time. Turns out they're going to be able to throw. I mean, the Devontae Adams, Brock Bowers combo looks pretty good right now. And Gardner Minshew facilitated a 100-catch receiver last year with Michael Pittman in Indianapolis. I don't think we should have left this passing game for dead.
I want a time machine, and I want to go back 3 or 4 weeks and tap myself on the shoulder and say, this Raiders passing game, you're panicked about it. You don't want to draft future Hall of Famer Devontae Adams as his ADP continues to slide. You don't want to draft the best rookie tight end of all time in Brock Bowers, which I think is in play. You can't give it to him after 2 weeks. But I think everything Sam Laporta did last year, I think Brock Bowers can build on. I think he's the player Kyle Pitts was supposed to be. And maybe it's just the fault of coaching. Maybe the Falcons just haven't figured out how to use Pitts right, even with the coordinator changing. But yeah, the Raiders, man. Pat, you saw Devontae Adams up close and personal for all those Packers teams. I can't believe I was shying away from a falling ADP of Devontae Adams. And I realize I'm steering the show off topic because we're running backs right now. But it kills me that Davante Adams was there at such a great value, and I kept saying no. What a horrible call by me.
The values, they kill us. Let's finish this off in the RB range. I have the question of like, who's your favorite outside the top 36 RB? That kind of actually intertwined with a price check that we needed to have this week, because we're going to talk about Carson Steele. Carson Steele, near the tippy top. I don't want to say was the number one waiver claim, because I think there were some people that were concerned about Kareem Hunt. I really don't think you should be. I'd be more concerned about Samaje Perine being there than Kareem Hunt signing. That wouldn't have changed my thought personally. But he comes in at ECR 43, so he's outside the top 36. The reason this is relevant is you guys have both got him in the 30s. He is almost an RB3 for Pat. He is RB36 for you, Mr. Scott Pianowski. So a price check, you've got him at RB3, and your favorite outside the top 36 ECR is Carson Steele. So why don't you wax on Carson Steele for just a second?
Yeah, I mean, he's the power back on this team, and he's going to have the touchdown equity. I agree with you, by the way. This Hunt thing is just, it's a diversion. Don't buy into it. They signed him because he's a known commodity. He knows the offense. He's still, I think, an insurance policy. And Samaje Perine's a good pass catcher. He's actually a really good blocker in Pass Pro. The Broncos love to use him in those hurry-up packages, so you'll have to accept that when they're in that mode that Steele won't be on the field. But as long as Steele doesn't fall on his face, he doesn't fumble at the goal line or make some terrible rookie mistake that forces them to maybe mothball him a little bit to give him his lesson and all that, I'm excited. But I think the Hunt acquisition actually neatly screened. It made Steele a little bit more affordable probably in some fab runs last night, and I would have no problem playing him on spec in week 3.
Pat, I think this is kind of an overall stay away situation from the Kansas City backfield, but not all of us have the ability to be like, oh, I don't care, and I've got all these amazing running backs. Like, we have to make moves. We lost Pacheco. We've lost players, so you have to be invested in some capacity. You seem relatively high on Carson Steele. Was there any pessimism kind of as the week has gone on about like Hunt signing, Samaje Perine? I mean, you got him ranked pretty high. You think he's going to stay in that flexy RB3 type of area for you?
I do think there was probably a lot of fab money lit on fire this week on Chiefs running backs. It's worth noting that in 2 of the last 5 seasons, no Kansas City running back has gotten to 600 rushing yards. And I think we could be looking at another season like that. But I do think out of all the Chiefs backs, Steele probably has the safest floor this week. But that floor could be 10 carries for 32 yards. But I do think he has a pretty good chance to get double-digit carries, which is not nothing, especially in a good offense.
Yeah, and Samaje Perine, I think, is going to be flexy just for people because I think he'll be more of a third down guy. He's going to have the receiving equity. And if you get 7 to 8 carries out of him, but you might get 4 or 5 catches as they like to swing it out of the backfield. Also, sneaky, look out for Xavier Worthy to maybe play a little bit of a role in the running game as he kind of has before, teams using that Debo role. Let's go over to wide receivers. We're finally out of running backs. There's so much to talk about. Let's get to the wide receivers. We're going with the top 12 over on ECR, starting with CeeDee Lamb coming in at number 1, Jamar Chase at number 2 against Washington, Amon-Ra, Justin Jefferson, Rashee Rice rounds out your top 5, Nico Collins, Garrett Wilson, Marvin Harrison Jr., Mike Evans, Devontae Adams, Tyreek Hill at 11, Chris Olave at 12. There are questions to be had in there. We're starting all of them. We could talk about Tyreek Hill in there, but I know we are going to just go with it. One interesting one, though, is a massive difference between you two. You guys have got a big gap of mid wide receiver 1 to almost mid wide receiver 2 between this player that's in there. Number 8's Marvin Harrison. Scott Pianowski, you have him at 7. And Pat, you have him at 17. So very far off. Nothing burger week 1. Huge equity in week 2. He was 4 for 8 on targets. So, Scott, let's start with you, the high guy on Marvin Harrison. You're all in. The offense is fixed. His role is fixed. He's good to go.
Why not? I mean, the total's 52.5. It's an indoor game. We know the Lions have a great pass rush. Hutchinson was just a monster in that game against Tampa Bay, but they have so many problems on the back end, and you have the mobility of Murray as well. I just think it's a genie out of the bottle situation for Harrison. And yeah, look, obviously what he did last week, that could easily go down as his best game of the year. Nobody's expecting that every week, but the usage is what should be static going forward. We're going to look back at the week 1 usage as a total fluke, and that he has 7 to 11 target equity every week, and he'll probably have more than that in some games. And again, 52.5 total. How can this game go wrong? I realize Tampa Bay, Detroit didn't give us quite the shootout that we wanted, but I think the Cardinals are, by the way, a great Carnival team because I don't trust their defense. I think last week their defense played quote unquote well because the Rams, half their team is hurt right now, but Arizona is going to be that Carnival 30 to 27 game weekly. So sign me up, and you have Marvin Harrison, you're playing him, but I think he's easily inside the top 10 cut line for me.
Yeah, and I think that's what I'm so interested about this with you, Pat, too, is because it's a high total game. If they're playing from behind, they're slanging the ball. They could go just continuously back and forth. Detroit is going to have an efficient offense against Arizona's defense. Marvin Harrison came off of a huge game, though, it's masked by these 2 touchdowns and the big plays and stuff. He also had a 50% catch rate. The misses were to him. So this isn't about you're not starting him. It just stands out that you are so dramatically lower than ECR. So what concerns, if there are, again, as a most likely startable wide receiver, do you have with Marvin Harrison?
Not even any concerns, and I'll probably revisit this just because there are 16 guys I felt a little bit better about, and it's probably a big tier, and I just put him at the bottom of the tier. But yeah, he's an unconditional start. The setup does look pretty good. The great Marvin Harrison Jr. panic of 2024 lasted only 1 week. There was the run on the banks. If anyone took out their money, i.e. traded away Marvin Harrison Jr., you're probably regretting that right now. So no question, you're starting him and probably feeling pretty good about it right now.
And if you were listening to Fantasy Pros and you traded him, you just wanted to fade us because I called it on Sunday night. I said, it's going to be the most talked about thing we do all week. Pizza Pia is going to come out the gates on Monday doing it. I did it on Tuesday. We were just going to slam the buy Marvin Harrison stuff because people were freaking out. So you were just fading us. I do want to point out, I'm actually with you on the idea of this doesn't have to be, the number looks negative, but there are a lot of good receivers in that 8 to 15 range that you can kind of pick and choose. It's like a tier-based thing. A little bit of a homer, but Deebo Samuel out. I think Brandon Ayuk to the moon also against this defense this week. He should get targets. Also, Juwan Jennings to the moon. But Malik Neighbors is a player. I think buying low on Chris Olave right now as Rashid Shaheed is getting all the focus. There are wide receivers in there that have got some good matchups that you could just pick that side over. It's just Marvin Harrison definitely did bounce back, but also Trey McBride should be jumping in there. It's an interesting wide receiver 1 through 12, but 13 through 24, that's where we're going to make some of the money. And as we move on, but first, my friends, if you are looking to hit a game, an event, a concert, whatever it is, you have got to check out the number 1 app and the number 1 place to get you set without concerns. It's Game Time. Game Time is my app of choice whenever I'm picking out a game because it is easy as possible. They've got this new feature called Game Time Picks that makes getting tickets to see your favorite teams play live even easier. Game Time Picks filters out the fluff to show you only incredible deals on great seats so you don't have to waste time searching through thousands of tickets. And seriously, my favorite part about Game Time, and it is unmatched, is the all-in pricing. Toggling this feature shows you the total up front, so there's no surprise fees at checkout. You see the seat, you see the price, that's what you're doing. You also can get panoramic views from your seat in the app before you buy to make sure you're really happy with your seat. And guess what? The lowest price guarantee or Game Time will credit you 110% of the difference. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code FANTASYPROS for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code FANTASYPROS, FantasyPros, for 20% off. Download Game Time today. What time is it? It's game time. And it is now time for wide receivers 13 through 24. The aforementioned Brandon Ayuk comes in at number 13 on the ECR. Devontae Smith, Chris Godwin, DJ Moore, Mr. Target, Malik Neighbors at 17, Zay Flowers, DK Metcalf, Jameson Williams at 20, Drake London, Amari Cooper, Stefon Diggs, and Tank Dell. Yes, 3 Houston wide receivers in the top 24. Let's start with DJ Moore. DJ Moore did not seem happy on the sidelines this week. There's a little clip of him turning over to Tyler Bagent and saying, "I need you." And that had some little reaction, and a lot of old clips of just kind of being shady on trading Justin Fields. Doesn't look great because, well, Caleb Williams has not looked great. ECR is 16, but Fitz, you've got him at 11. Scott, you've got him at 19. So this is another differing range here. Scott, do you think we are towing the line, if you have one more week of Caleb Williams struggling, that DJ Moore becomes less and less of a sit it and forget it, don't even think about it? Are we even getting into that range?
I'm concerned. In fact, I'm very open here. I think this show is cheating off your pages, your page and Pat's page, and sharpening my rankings. This is one time where I'm not going to agree with Pat, because I think it's time to put the Bears passing game on the restricted list. And I've moved everybody down. Since my original rankings have come down, I've moved more down more. And I don't trust anybody else in this passing game right now. And how shocking is it? I realize passing's down around the league, and I realize you have to be patient with rookie players, but none of the rookie quarterbacks have a touchdown pass yet. And it's not just like, oh, well, they're playing great, but they're getting tackled at the one. And I realize what Keenan Allen dropped to touchdowns. This has been some points left on the board, but still, Caleb Williams looks like he shouldn't be playing. I don't trust Shane Waldron. They're in a matchup where they can probably control the game on the ground, and they have a good defense as well. So I can see Caleb Williams having 123 passing yards or something like that. And DJ Moore is no longer, I'm going to move to the point that there are going to be teams that are strong enough at receiver that they might not start DJ Moore. That's how concerned they'll fix it. Caleb Williams is going to be good. And maybe it's going to be with the next coordinator, because I think Shane Waldron could easily be a one and done here. But I think some fear, some panic on the Chicago passing game is completely warranted.
Caleb Williams he needs to be quicker, and I think that's been kind of a pretty known thing. Defenses are going to continue to just blitz and get in his face because he's not making quick decisions. That does seem like a fixable thing that the offense can work through, and it should start with DJ Moore. Maybe this defensive matchup is where things start going. You don't want to call anything this like a critical point, because it can turn around at any point. But like, we go a third week, that's going to be a problem. I feel like we're not, Pat. You seem to be kind of banking purely on the talent and maybe not so much on just the inefficiency of the Bears. Is that fair to say? Or what's got you at as him as, he's inside the top 12 for you?
I'm trying not to overreact, but this could very well be a case where I'm underreacting. I'm basically just sticking with my initial read on DJ Moore, that I do think he's one of the better wide receivers in the entire league. And, as bad as the Colts' run defense has been, their pass defense has been pretty bad too. I think they're 30th in DVOA against the run and 29th against the pass. Their outside corners can absolutely be taken advantage of. So I'm hoping the matchup pays off. But yeah, like I do have concerns about this passing game. Maybe they do go with the really run-heavy approach this week. So, I'm not going to lie. I'm a little nervous about this ranking. I might wind up easing back off this stance a little bit for some of the reasons that Scott outlined.
Wide receiver 3, or 3 wide receiver leagues where you guys have 3 wide receivers, probably pretty tough to do this with DJ Moore. You just kind of got to bite it unless you have maybe some incredible matchup and you feel a tiny bit better. 2 wide receiver formats, this is where things can maybe get a little bit more sticky, where, hey, you got a decent deal on Chris Godwin and it's a great matchup, or Brandon Ayuk fell to you and now you do have options where you could sit DJ Moore. One of the few players that I think, there's not a ton where you got big values on, but one of the players that could maybe push DJ Moore, even if you had a 3 wide receiver league, let's just arguably say, you ended up getting like Justin Jefferson and Nico Collins, and then you wait a little bit, you got DJ Moore, but then you also got Jameson Williams. What a great wide receiver core that would be, by the way. But I'm leading up to saying Jameson Williams is one of those few like non-traditional top 24 wide receivers that has really jumped up this week. I'm all in on Jameson Williams. I did the whole thing on the show earlier this week. I love the target share. The target share is coming a little bit at the expense of Sam Laporta, so you can like openly say, hey, when Sam Laporta gets back that target share and Amon-Ra keeps going, can Jameson Williams continue to do it? I'm betting that he can. So are rankers. He is 20 here. So he could be a guy that could push a DJ Moore out. Obviously, I think you guys both have, let's see, Scott, you've got him at 20. Fitz, you've got him at 19. So no one's starting him over DJ Moore. But we've got him in the wide receiver 2 range. So, Scott, let's start with you. Wide receiver 20, Jameson Williams, all in, great matchup here. Must start as a top 2 wide receiver this week.
Yeah, and I definitely, in my updated rankings, have him higher than DJ Moore. But J-Mo, one of the right answers, it looks like, this season. And a lot of times at receiver, we think, well, there aren't many home runs. Usually it's like, well, you try to beat your ADP or maybe move up a slot. Jameson Williams could be the biggest ADP smasher of this season. And I think people misunderstand sometimes. Because Detroit has a lot of good offensive players, they misunderstand that this is still a pretty narrow concentration. They have 2 backs who touch the ball. The quarterback doesn't run. They have a tight end, Laporta, who will eventually get going. They have 2 receivers. Everybody else is fighting for scraps. When Detroit scores a touchdown, it's one of those guys. Is it as narrow as maybe the Miami tree? No, but it's extremely narrow. Jameson Williams, that's a genie out of the bottle. He's finally healthy. I mean, this is a guy who, even after a horrible knee blowout, he still goes in the first round. He was a star at Alabama. Ironically, he needed to leave Ohio State to get playing time because that's how stocked the Ohio State receiver room has been in recent years. But this is finally, he's had some off the field problems. He had the gambling suspension. It's finally all happening for Jameson Williams and that beautiful indoor schedule they're going to get most of the season. I know Jared Goff is maybe more of a B or B plus quarterback. He's never really going to be a superstar, but you can go deep with Jared Goff. The Rams went to the Super Bowl with him. He was a couple plays away from making it last year with the Lions. I wish I had Jameson Williams on all of my teams, and I'm way underweight. You don't hear underweight and Pianowski tied together too often, but I'm underweight on Jameson Williams shares. It's very frustrating. I think he'll have 100 yards and a touchdown this week.
We saw J-Mo fade last year in games. He just disappear. We have not seen that for the first 2 weeks. Pat, do you have any concerns that if the offense starts to, find its median line of what it usually is, where it's more Jahmyr Gibbs is kind of down right now, Sam Laporta is kind of down. Do you think when the offense finds a stride, it will move away from Jameson Williams? Or do you think this playmaking ability has created a floor where it's like he could be at worst a wide receiver 3 every single week in fantasy, but maybe be a wide receiver 2?
Floor is probably the key word here, Welsh. And I guess that's my concern. And, you said I had him wide receiver 19. I actually have him wide receiver 23. So I'm a bit below consensus on JMO this week. And my concern, I guess, is that so far, 20 targets and 24% target share for JMO. But Jared Goff is leading the NFL in pass attempts right now with 83. And I don't, obviously that's probably not going to last. And the nice thing about Williams is that he doesn't necessarily need a high target share because of the kind of receiver he is. He's averaging 24.2 yards per catch this year, 17 for his career. And my worry is that in any given week, if the targets tick up for Amon-Ra St. Brown and for Sam Laporta, it could be a 3 or 4 target week for Jameson Williams and maybe only 1 or 2 catches. Now, he has the ability to make his fantasy quota with just a catch or 2. We're seeing total vindication for the Lions front office, having spent the first round pick on him and not getting much of anything their first 2 years. It's paying off. And even when he's not making plays himself, what he does to open up that offense for others, he is a very useful chess piece for him. But I do worry just with the amped up passing volume we've seen so far that maybe the floor is not quite as safe as it would appear.
Let's talk about one more in this range, and let's talk about Stefon Diggs, who comes in at ECR 23, right in front of Tank Dell. And Scott's got him at 26, so outside of there, I'm closer to Scott's rank. Fitz, you've got him at wide receiver 20. I am not as much of a believer. Maybe I'll just consistently just be stupidly kind of hating on Stefon Diggs. I think it's hard. This team is definitely pressing, by the way, where 3 wide receivers can be relevant. But we kind of saw shades of it last week. My big thing was, the A-dot guys, the bigger stretch guys. Nico is untouchable. Tank Dell is that. And Stefon Diggs is kind of a safety net. Feels very Keenan Allen-y to me in this offense if the Bears were really good, which has touchdown equity. But my problem is I feel like if Diggs doesn't have touchdowns, we're not going to have these big performances. So I have a hard time ranking him as a wide receiver, inside the wide receiver 2, and really even a high wide receiver 3. But that's me. Pat, you don't. You've got him inside your wide receiver 2s at 20. So where is your confidence level? And is it really just about like just how great, the Texans are in throwing the ball?
Yeah, I'm a little worried about this ranking. Honestly, I might be a little too rosy, or maybe I'm hoping for the revenge game narrative to come through against the Vikings. But I guess what worries me is that the average depth of target right now for Stefon Diggs is 5.7 yards, which is really uncharacteristic for him. I mean, like if he is going to morph into Jarvis Landry in this later stage of his career, yeah, that's going to be a problem, because I don't think there's going to be, 13, 14, 15 target games out there for Stefon Diggs every week. Not when you've got Nico Collins and Tank Dell to share targets with. So, yeah, I might be too optimistic on this, and he probably is sort of a borderline start-sit guy, especially in leagues where you only have to start 2 wide receivers.
Scott, what say you on Diggs?
Yeah, just thinking more globally with this passing game, there's going to be a lot of buy low on Tank Dell. And look, in non-competitive leagues, you can get Dell really cheap. And again, do you even need our help? Just to make it clear how I feel about this, I'd rather have Tank Dell than Stefon Diggs going forward. They actually have about the same amount of yards from scrimmage so far. And because Diggs has those 2 touchdowns, and they count, if you get short touchdowns, that's a win for the play caller. And I don't see why Diggs would stop scoring touchdowns, but they're manufacturing touches for Dell also. He's picked up 5 carries. He's had a couple of near misses on deep balls. He's obviously a lot younger than Diggs. My strong takeaway here is that Dell is going to have a better fantasy season from this point forward than Diggs, and I think you can maybe act on that right now.
All right, let's go to wide receiver 25 through 36. Starting with Michael Pittman, we've got George Pickens, Jalen Waddle, all the way down to 27. Xavier Worthy at 28. Rashid Shaheed, Calvin Ridley, Jaxon Smith-Njigba at 31. Brian Thomas, Terry McLaurin, Christian Kirk, Khalil Shakir, and Deontay Johnson. Let's do a couple quick hitters on this. I'm going to hit each one of you guys as the high guy on a couple of these. And Fitz, let's start with you. Amari Cooper, ECR 25. I believe I had that at. Amari Cooper is he moved up? Amari Cooper is actually 22. That was an old thing. So he's up to 22 here. Fitz, you've got him at 22. Scott has him at 31. Let's get your take, Fitz, on Amari Cooper and trusting Deshaun Watson, because I sure don't.
It's like we've gotten the NFL wide receivers version of the movie The Fly. So far, we've had Quentin Johnston in one pod and Amari Cooper in the other pod, and they apparently changed hands. Because right now, Amari Cooper's drop rate is 23.5%. I kind of think that's a fluke. Amari Cooper is a pretty known commodity at this point. I'm just kind of sticking with my initial read on him, and a matchup with the Giants is certainly nothing to fear.
Let's go to you here, Scott, with Jaxon Smith-Njigba, who has got ECR 31. Fitz has got him down at 33, so a little bit lower after that absolutely explosive performance. You've got him up at 23. So Jaxon Smith-Njigba, was last week's performance more reality of what the means every week is going to be with JSN?
Yeah, it has to be, right? I mean, those beautiful snaps in the slot snaps, I was trying to say. He's getting more run than Tyler Lockett, who was surprisingly more productive in week 1 than we expected. It's just a genie out of the bottle thing, and a trusting Grubb as a play caller. Also, by the way, Cooper earlier, he's getting off-target throws from Watson that Watson's not giving to anybody else. That's also a fluke that's going to iron itself out. Cooper is somebody I'm still going to start with confidence, but I think JSN's breakout season is here. It's going to be spectacular in a wide receiver 2 type of way, because Metcalf is still the alpha there. But I mean, anytime a guy gets targeted 16 times and it's successfully targeted that much, when something works, teams keep doing it. They're going to keep doing what they did with JSN last week against a pretty good Patriots defense.
ECR wide receiver 33. This was actually a buy for me on the buy, sell, and trade show earlier this week, Pat. Terry McLaurin, one of the things I loved, 8th best adjusted completion percentage for Jaden Daniels, 75% first read thrower, and Terry McLaurin was an elite first read guy. The numbers haven't been there, and they're not throwing touchdowns. I think it's a great time to buy Terry McLaurin right now. Pianowski's got him at 34, so right around ECR, but you've got him at 28. So back in on Terry McLaurin, Fitz.
I'm in on him. I think the talent is pretty well established. He has been a good receiver and continues to be one. I'm hoping Jaden Daniels gets to throw downfield a little more often, because that's my biggest concern right now. He's averaging, according to Pro Football Reference, 4.4 intended air yards per pass. And I guess that's been the knock on Cliff Kingsbury, that the horizontal nature of his passing game at times. And we're seeing that now. I'm hoping part of that is just Jaden Daniels developing confidence, and maybe they're limiting the playbook for him right now. Hopefully we see more of a vertical element to the Commanders' passing game as time goes by.
And Kingsbury has to be more creative with McLaurin. He's been very static with how he uses him, and it's driving me crazy. Can we just get like a Clint Kubiak clone to go into Washington and say, okay, let's use a little motion. Let's be a little bit more creative with our scheming, because that's been the biggest failure of McLaurin right now, is they're not scheming him the way they should be.
The last one in this general range, and then we're going to just do a favorite outside of Christian Kirk. Christian Kirk comes in at ECR 34. Fitz has got him down here at 40. Scott, you've got him at 33. A little bit more confidence. Brian Thomas is the big playmaker. Christian Kirk disappeared this week without Evan Ingram. Pianowski, where and what level of confidence exists with you in Christian Kirk going up against Buffalo this week?
Man, I really bought into Trevor Lawrence and the Jaguars, and they have not repaid that confidence. The Browns get paid on defense. That was part of it, but they gave away that game at Miami. It's conceivable if you hit on some of the ADP beaters at wide receiver, maybe Kirk isn't a start for you, because right now I'm starting to wonder. I was really giving Lawrence the benefit of the doubt this would be a breakout year for him, or at least he'd start to look more like the player we thought he was. Maybe he's never going to be Peyton Manning. We've all given up on that type of idea, but I'm starting to question my confidence in the Jaguar offense. So I'm expecting a lot of Christian Kirk sit questions on Sunday, and I'm not really sure what I'm going to tell people, because I don't have a ton of confidence in that offense right now.
And I don't either. I do have confidence in Brian Thomas. I just would like Brian Thomas to get the targets. We need the targets.
He is fabulous.
Yeah.
Those LSU receivers, man, when have they ever let you down?
That's right. Yeah. Favorite outside the top 46 wide receivers. So that's pushed us out of wide receiver threes and flexes. Scott, let's start with you. Your favorite wide receiver that's outside of that, 36, 48 type of range.
I can't believe I'm back in on Quentin Johnston, but I am. It may be a small pie, but he's getting first read targets. I think he's third in that stat behind Cooper Kupp and Malik Neighbors, who are both over 50%, which is just crazy. And then Johnston is 38.5% per the fantasy points data suite, which is really, really great. So I know it's going to be a rock fight in Pittsburgh, because it always is, but I think Johnston's here to stay as a fantasy factor.
Pat, your favorite deeper wide receiver for the week?
Right now I've got DeAndre Hopkins ahead of Quentin Johnston. I might have to change that. I'm with Scott on Quentin Johnston, and it's the usage. I don't know if he's fixed. We might see the drops become a problem again, but right now they're using him on a lot of screens and little slants, and that's the usage that I think is ideal for Quentin Johnston. Get this guy the ball, because he is still really pretty special with the ball in his hands. So make it easy throws, easy catches, let him do his damage after the catch.
I'm also telling everybody Adam Thielen's going to catch 6 passes. They're Andy Dalton passes. They're probably going to be 39 yards or 43 yards, maybe a touchdown. I am not giving up on the Panthers, man. I'm not giving up on Hubbard. I'm not giving up on Deontay Johnson. And for at least 1 week, if I need a wide receiver punt in DFS, I could maybe live with Adam Thielen.
Adam Thielen and Deontay Johnson probably going to get more catches in this coming game than they have the first 2 games of the season. So be on the lookout for that. Let's burn through some quarterback and tight end ranks here. Going over to the quarterbacks, your top 12, Josh Allen, Lamar Jackson, Jalen Hurts coming in at 3, Kyler Murray, Patrick Mahomes, Joe Burrow, CJ Stroud, Jaden Daniels at 8, Anthony Richardson down at 9, Brock Purdy, Jared Goff, and Baker Mayfield. Fitz, you've got Baker Mayfield at 10. Pianowski's got him at 15. Baker Mayfield is the number 1 fantasy quarterback, I believe, right now. He's been crazy, Pat. The unique thing about Baker Mayfield to me is whoever has Baker Mayfield probably has a Caleb Williams or maybe a Jaden Daniels or some really interesting quarterback, and they're having to actually make the decision of Baker Mayfield over ... Pat. And at this point, especially with this matchup, you feel comfortable with it, Denver. Whatever that ... is, you start Baker.
Yeah, home matchup against Denver. I do not expect Baker Mayfield to finish as the QB1 in fantasy scoring, but we're seeing that maybe he was not just a Dave Canales creation and that he can work in the Liam Cohen offense too.
The interesting thing in this other respect I'm going to throw is this next quarterback, Scott Pianowski. You have Derek Carr at 10. He did not show up on this list. Fitz has him at 16. Our dear friend Derek Brown here at Fantasy Pros tweeted out, if you don't have Derek Carr as a QB1, I don't know what to tell you. What are we doing? That team is scoring 40 points a week. They're not going to do it every single week. But from a matchup perspective, he is slinging the ball left and right. You are in the D-Bro school of thought here, Scott. So talk to us about Derek Carr as a top 10 QB this week.
Yeah, maybe it's just I'm eager to try to correct things I had wrong. And I had just written off Derek Carr as an ordinary player in an offense that was declining, and I totally underestimated Kubiak, underestimated Kamara's ability to turn back the clock. We all love Chris Olave. Everybody's going to tell you to buy low on Chris Olave. I don't know what leagues that's available in, but if you can do it, yes, I'll certainly do it. And Shaheed is becoming a player who runs more diverse routes now. He's not just one of these MVS players who runs 5 or 6, deep routes and, he clears up for everybody else, but he doesn't get enough volume to be played. I think Shaheed's now firmly, and we didn't talk about him, but he's somebody I would be starting if I had him. But I believe in this offense. The Eagles, what's so special with the Eagles defense, right? I mean, the Packers did a lot of things they wanted in week 1, and then Kirk Cousins got his season started in week 2. Darnell Mooney, I think, is under roster. I can't believe his roster tag in Yahoo is as low as it is. He plays just about every snap for the Falcons. So if something's working, keep rolling with it. I don't see why the Saints wouldn't put up 27 plus points in this game.
Pat, I want to ask you this one, and this is a dicey question to even ask. Are there concerns? Do you have concerns with Anthony Richardson moving forward? We are not seeing great decision-making. What he can do with his legs keeps him in it at all times. We're actually going to talk about another quarterback that in just a second to end it out, that has some questionable passing skills, but keeps his fantasy relevance done on the ground and with his legs. But that's like between QB 14 and 15. What side are you on? Like, we should be concerned about Anthony Richardson, or it's very early in the season. Everybody is making a big to-do about nothing. He comes in at QB9. Bears defense they've been pretty good. Like, they're not an easy walkthrough. What's your take on Anthony Richardson from the must-start quarterback to, hey, if Derek Carr or Baker Mayfield's out there, maybe that's a better floor?
I don't think we've got a safe weekly floor with Anthony Richardson, but we still have that spectacular ceiling because of his rushing ability. And they're going to be the smash running games that you just do not want to miss out on. He is, in terms of passing, a below average NFL starter. But in terms of running and what he can do for you in the fantasy game, there is no limit to his ceiling, basically. So, I have no doubt that if he plays the entire season, doesn't get hurt, he's going to finish as a top 10 quarterback. I think you just have to keep him in your lineup and realize there are going to be some bumpy weeks.
He's like a baseball player who swings for the fences, strikes out a ton, but he's going to hit 35 home runs, 40 home runs. And not only does he have that rushing ability, but they're going to throw deep they're going to try shot plays every week. We saw them hit a bunch of them in week 1. It was a different story in week 2, but there's always going to be the possibility of that 70-yard touchdown pass too.
It'd be interesting to do. It's kind of like the streaming defensive thing would be to take Anthony Richardson's weekly output and then each week take a quarterback that you could stream and see if you could outscore throughout the season to kind of show the value. I mean, you could maybe in theory do that and outperform some top quarterbacks, but I just worry about the ceiling and the floor just being really dramatic, making the wrong decisions. If Anthony Richardson stacks on another 1 or 2, people are going to really be like, all right, maybe I need to get Brock Purdy in, or maybe I need to get Kirk Cousins or blah, blah, blah. And then you just start making the wrong decisions. Kind of go down with the ship or not. He has a really high equity. There's some concerns out there. And the guy I was alluding to before, the last on the QBs, was Justin Fields. There's an arm difference. I'm not sure we're ever going to see Justin Fields have a 60-yard dart falling to his knees like Anthony Richardson had in week 1. But there's some questionable passing skills with massive rushing upside, and he gets into that 15 range. Definitely not trying to call Richardson Justin Fields or anything like that, but we're just worried about some of that passing equity. Justin Fields, though, comes in, Fitz, at QB 14, Pianowski at 17, so it's an easy super flex start. Fitz, is Fields just becoming the quarterback you just comfortably start as long as he is starting for Pittsburgh week in and week out, unless there's a really great, like I said, a floor, Baker Mayfield, Derek Carr, something like that, you just get Fields out there?
Yeah, running quarterback roulette. I'm just going to keep putting my chips down on the same numbers every week. And I know the little ball's not always going to fall into the right slot, but I want to bet on the running quarterback. Maybe I'm a little less confident in Fields than Richardson. I'd rather bet on Shane Steichen as a play caller than Arthur Smith, but still, I think Fields is a very viable starting option any given week.
I'd say this for Smith. I don't like him either, but they're actually doing some really good stuff with George Pickens. And I didn't want to bet on Pickens because I didn't want to bet on Smith, but I think that was a case where betting on the talent would have won out. And I'm also curious, can Justin Fields be the starter for an extended period of time? They have the luxury of being 2-0, good defense, taking their time with Russell Wilson, but maybe there's just more upside with Fields being a lot younger. The athleticism of Wilson may be gone for good, and he needed that to survive, I think, in the NFL. I was as big a Russell Wilson fan as there was for a very long time, but I'm just surprised that Fields has already made 2 starts and hasn't had the electric, fantasy-friendly Justin Fields game yet, but maybe the schedule has played into that as well.
Maybe this week we'll get it going. Finally, let's go over to the tight ends, and we got one big glaring thing that's going to hit us here. Trey McBride comes in at tight end 1. That's not the thing. How about tight end 2? Brock Bowers in ECR this week. George Kittle comes in at 3, Laporta at 4, Kelsey at 5, Andrews at 6, Kincaid at 7. We've got Pitts, Goddard, Isaiah Likely, Ertz, and Hunter Henry. Ladies and gentlemen, it's Brock Bowers time. ECR 2, Fitz 2, Scott Pianowski 1. I put 2 fingers up here. 1, number 1 on the board here. So you are all in on Brock Bowers, Scott.
Yeah, Minshew's playing a lot better than I expected, and this passing game is routed through these 2 guys. I think, again, I mentioned it earlier, I think Brock Bowers is the Kyle Pitts we were promised. I think it's finally here. We saw how great he was at Georgia. Some of his greatness was mitigated by there was a team that could win with defense and running the ball. They didn't throw the balls aggressively. And I thought Gardner Minshew, after he played so poorly in the preseason, was like a scratch off, and they only went to him because O'Connell was worse. But I'm actually thinking the Raiders have a passable offense and a credible passing game. And just Bowers is just one of these guys who comes around once a generation. I think he's the guy that Pitts was promised to us. It's Brock Bowers.
God, there's a Game of Thrones meme that needs to be created of our Brock Bowers as the Kyle Pitts we were promised. It's all there for me. Pat, hat tip to you and Bogman. You two were like the 2 highest in the world on Brock Bowers. It already happened. I said this on the prop show last week. One of my favorite bets was Brock Bowers over 3.5 receptions. I said you will never, for the rest of the season, see Brock Bowers at 3.5 receptions again. And that is now confirmed. You will never see him under 3.5 receptions. Just any takes on Brock Bowers this week, Pat?
Yeah, the over on 34.5 yards was pretty good too. I have a friend who had never played fantasy football before. Big baseball guy has never played fantasy football. So he asked me for help before his first draft. I gave him a paint by numbers set of instructions as much as possible at all the positions. I said, count up tight ends. After 9 have been taken, take Brock Bowers with your very next draft pick. He did that. He texted me on Monday. He thinks I'm a witch or something for having given him that advice. Now, I gave him some terrible advice too. I told him to get Tajay Spears and Chase Brown. That's not looking so good. So I'm certainly not trying to brag here. I have whiffed on a lot of things early on, but I was always going to have on the side of confidence in Brock Bowers after watching that guy play at Georgia.
You get to have him.
I asked Pat for his color by numbers advice, and he told me to listen to Culture Club. So I didn't get the Brock Bowers, no matter what advice, and I'm a little steamed about that.
All right, let's do one final thing on tight ends here. Let's do Hunter Henry versus Isaiah Likely. We've got Likely at 10, Hunter Henry at 12. Fitz, you've got Henry at 10. Pianowski, you've got Likely at 9. And then you've got the inverse. Pianowski has got Hunter Henry at 14. Fitz, you've got him at 11. So, Scott, let's start with you here. Hunter Henry versus Likely. Has this become target floor versus big, massive upside on Isaiah?
I just think Likely's a more dynamic player, but I am going to move Henry up. He currently leads the tight end position in route participation. So he's the featured part of, albeit a small passing game in New England. The Jets is not a great matchup for him, but when Hunter Henry's healthy, he's a good football player. Some seasons he hasn't been healthy, but he has a really good rapport with Brissett. I think Brissett's going to play for an extended period of time. This Patriots seems more competitive than I expected. So Henry will end up being a top 12 tight end for me. I still want Likely's athleticism and upside. And not that Henry doesn't have upside. He just had a 100-yard game for crying out loud. But that route participation, with tight ends, we don't want them taking out the trash. We want them running routes. And the Patriots are comfortable with Hunter Henry doing just that.
Pat, second straight week, by the way, that top 5 in waivers was probably a tight end. Isaiah Likely in week 1, Hunter Henry this week with that target share. You're pretty bullish on being comfortable with him rest of season, so you're getting him out there.
Yeah, in addition to all the reasons Scott just enumerated to be bullish on Hunter Henry this week, I think the big one for me is that the Patriots wide receivers against the Jets cornerbacks is an epic mismatch. Like, the Jets have probably the best set of cornerbacks in the league, and the Patriots have one of the lesser groups of wide receivers. I would not be surprised if we saw a lot of targets funneled to Hunter Henry this week.
Ladies and gentlemen, those are your week 3 ranks. You guys want to check out the ranks all week long? Go to fantasypros.com/rankings. If you want to peruse, see how everybody has got them. Scott said it earlier too. You could make your own sheets with the My Playbook app. You can go in, pick your certain rankers, see what the consensus for your selected rankers are, or you can just do the whole kit and caboodle, see everything throughout the week. Go to fantasypros.com/rankings. Also, don't forget about our weekly start and sit live stream on YouTube, on our YouTube channel. Go and fantasypros.com or youtube.com/fantasypros, where you can come and ask specific start and sit questions. We'll be with you every Thursday at 3 p.m. Eastern. For those listening on the podcast, youtube.com/fantasypros. Subscribe and click on the bell to notify yourself so you can get those weekly live streams right to you. Scott Pianowski, Pat Fitzmaurice, you guys are both saints. I appreciate all of your takes here. Hopefully you guys enjoyed the podcast. You know where to go for the rankings. You know what to do if you want to win some autographed stuff. Thank you guys as always for hanging out with us. Subscribe on the podcast and get down on the YouTube. I'm Chris Welsh. We'll talk to you next time right here on Fantasy Pros, the football podcast.